Your Photos app says it's 94% sure that's your dog. A weather app says 70% chance of rain. A voice assistant picks one word over another, certain. Every one of those is a machine telling you exactly how sure it is. But where does that precise number actually come from? In the next few minutes, you'll see the one little step that turns a network's messy guesses into clean, confident percentages. The percentages that always add up to exactly 100. It happens right at the very end, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. This is Glass Box, where we make the hardest ideas in AI feel obvious. Today's question: when an AI says it's 90% sure, how does it decide on that exact number? Remember the network we built. At the very end sits a row of neurons, one for each possible answer. For reading a digit, that's 10 neurons, 0 through 9. Each one lights up with a number for how much the network leans toward that answer. But here's the catch nobody tells you. Those final numbers are not percentages. One neuron might read 2.3, another -1, another 5.8. They can be big, small, even negative. They don't add up to anything tidy. They're just raw enthusiasm. We need to turn that mess into real confidence. So here's the plan in 5 steps. 1. Why those raw scores aren't probabilities. 2. The recipe that fixes it, Softmax. 3. Why it boosts the leader. 4. Why the answers always add up to 100%. And 5. We watch 10 raw scores collapse into one confident pick live. Part 1. The raw scores, a messy pile of numbers. Those final raw numbers have a name: logits. A logit is just one neuron's raw score for an answer. Before any cleanup, how loudly that neuron is shouting its vote. Higher means more in favor, negative means actively against. Real example, like the raw applause for each act in a talent show. One act gets a roaring crowd, another few claps, another some boos, loud, quiet, even negative, and nobody's measured it as a fair percentage yet. And that's exactly the problem. Raw applause isn't a fair score. You can't say one act got 140 claps worth of confidence. The numbers are on no fixed scale, they can be negative, and they don't share out to a neat total. Before we can trust them, we have to convert them. What we actually want are 2 simple things. Every score should land between 0 and 100%, never negative, never over the top. And all of them together should add up to exactly 100%, like slices of a single pie. One recipe gives us both at once. Part 2, Softmax, turning scores into percentages. That recipe is called Softmax. Softmax is the final step that takes the whole pile of raw scores and reshapes them into clean percentages that sum to 100. Real example, like an election. Everyone shouts for their favorite, that's the raw noise, and Softmax is the official count that turns all that shouting into tidy vote shares that add up to 100%. The recipe has just 2 moves. First, take each raw score and make it strictly positive, in a way that stretches the big ones much further apart than the small ones. Then, divide each result by the total of all of them. That second step is what forces everything to share 100% between them. Think of slicing a pizza for the table. The hungrier someone is, the bigger their slice. But no matter what, the slices have to fill the whole pizza and nothing more. Softmax decides how big each answer's slice of confidence is and guarantees the slices always cover exactly the whole pie. Part 3, why it boosts the leader. That first move, the stretching one, uses something called an exponential. An exponential is a way of growing where each step up multiplies instead of adds, so big numbers shoot up dramatically faster than small ones. Real example, like rumors spreading. 2 people tell 2 more, who tell 2 more, the count doesn't crawl up, it explodes. A small head start becomes a runaway lead. This is the secret sauce. Because the big scores get blown up so much more than the small ones, the leader's modest lead in raw points becomes a commanding lead in percentages. A score that was just a little ahead can end up owning most of the pie. That's why Softmax is really a confidence amplifier. Raw scores of, say, 3 and 2 and 1 don't feel that different, but after Softmax, the top one might take roughly 2/3 of the confidence, while the loser is left with a sliver. The gaps get exaggerated, on purpose. And there's an honest caveat here, that confidence is only as good as the training. A network can be exaggeratedly, beautifully sure, and still be wrong if it learned from bad examples. Softmax makes the answer look confident. It doesn't make it correct. Part 4. Why it always adds up to 100. What comes out of Softmax is a probability. For each answer, the network's share of belief that this is the right one. 0% means no chance, 100% means completely certain, and everything lives in between. Real example, like a weather forecast. 70% rain, 30% dry, 2 outcomes, and the forecaster's belief split between them, always totaling 100. And that totaling is no accident. Remember the second move, dividing each piece by the total of all of them. That single step mathematically guarantees the pieces add back up to exactly 100%. It's baked in. The model is never allowed to be 110% sure or to have its guesses quietly leak away. So when you see 90% on one answer, you're also seeing a promise. The other 10% is spread across every other possibility. Confidence in one place always means doubt borrowed from somewhere else. That's what makes it an honest measure of how sure the model really is. Part 5. Watch it work. Let's run it. The final layer hands us 10 raw scores for the digits 0 through 9. Most are small and grumbling near 0. But the neuron for the digit 3 is shouting the loudest. Its raw score towers over the rest. Softmax steps in. First it stretches them, and watch the 3's lead explode away from the pack. Then it divides everything by the total, and the 10 numbers settle into percentages. The bars snap into a single pie. The slice for 3 swells to fill most of it, say 92%. The other 9 digits split the leftover sliver between them, and if you add every slice together, exactly 100. There's nothing left over. That's the whole answer to our opening question. The machine didn't pull 92% out of thin air. It took its raw enthusiasm, stretched the leader, and shared out a single pie of confidence, and that final number is simply the biggest slice. So here's the whole picture. The final layer gives raw scores, logits, that aren't percentages at all. Softmax stretches them with an exponential, which exaggerates the leader, then shares them out so they sum to 100. What comes out is a probability for each answer, an honest, tidy measure of how sure the model is, where confidence in one answer is always doubt borrowed from the rest, and the biggest slice is the model's pick. But notice what we just did. We took 10 neurons and turned them into a confident answer. Now imagine the answer isn't a digit, it's the next word in a sentence. Stack that idea up, and you get the engine behind every chatbot you've ever talked to. That's the very next video, the one idea behind every chatbot. If Softmax finally clicked for you, subscribe so you don't miss how it builds into a chatbot. This was Glass Box. See you in the next one.